guys, I'm back. Did you see a fun, exciting change of my edifice from, spring and summer to autumn? Yeah, I didn't. So I go out to the shed, not the edifice, but the shed, to pull out the totes. There should be 3 totes that I need. I need the decorating tote for my edifice. I need my autumn clothing because I'm leaving in 2 weeks for a trip. And then, back to where there's going to be hints of fall, right? And then I need the fall tote for the house because tomorrow number 4 daughter is coming over to transform my living room into an autumnal wonderland. It's so good to have her back this year. You have no idea. So I needed to get in there, and I tried all week long. So one of the amazing things that happened when Kevin got hurt was that we came home and my daughter's boyfriend had built a ramp up to the house so that Kevin could actually get in the house. They had come up with a couple of different wheelchairs, one of which unfortunately doesn't fold and would go into the doors, the outside doors of our house, but it would not go through our skinny little hallways. It's a, house built in 54. The hallways and the doorways are really skinny, so we couldn't use it at all. And it sat in our living room. We kept trying to get it back to the owner, and it wasn't working, so we finally put it in the shed so that it would be protected and out of our way. Yeah, well, it's in the middle of the walkway. I can't get in there. And this Kevin has built, how they build those archways and then for a bridge or something, and then there's this keystone thing. Well, he's built this arch thing, and I don't know what the keystone is, but if I pull the wrong thing off first, everything's gonna fall and it could damage this thing. I don't want to damage somebody else's property, so I can't pull stuff out myself because I don't know the engineering that he has done to be able to put stuff in there. So I didn't get to do my edifice, which means I'm not doing my September TBR because I want that transformation for my reading. But I do have some thoughts about it that I may or may not bring into this. I don't think I'll have time. So I'll probably have to ask later. But all this stuff, I've already gotten into autumn here. It's September 1st. Last night after midnight, I made, I don't know if it'll show, maple fudge. These are so good. Okay. I found a great recipe. It has 3 ingredients. It has maple syrup, whipping cream, and butter. That's it. That's all that's in it. It's the creamiest, amazing fudge. The problem that I have with it, aside from talking with my mouth full, which I know better and I'm doing anyway, but the problem I have, it's so good. But it doesn't taste like maple fudge. It tastes like maple syrup fudge. And I used organic, 100% maple syrup, everything to make sure. But it does taste like syrup. It's so good though. Man, this is good. So today I bought maple extract. I'm going to make another batch. I'm going to flavor the milk with the maple extract and see if I can just infuse just a little bit more maple to tone down the syrup. I have no idea if it's going to work. I don't want to mess too much. I don't want to change chemical compositions and stuff because that is that is the best fudge I've ever made. And it is really good. But I want just a little something else. So I'm going to try it. But I had to do something autumnal. So I'm midnight crosses over and I'm in the kitchen, with the candy thermometer and the syrup. So I'm going to do it again tonight, I think. I hope I have time. That is my plan. But instead, I've never done this before, I don't think. But I'm going to do my August wrap-up, the second half, before I even share my September TBR. I mean, it's series September. I'm just reading a bunch of series, but I don't know. I have to admit, I'm a little sad. But I am going on to tomorrow or tonight, by the time this goes up, tonight will be the second full week of walking again. And it feels so good to be walking again. which brings me to my first book. So last night, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the series. So I don't know where I saw the name Charlotte McCloud, but I saw the name Charlotte McCloud. I saw that she had mysteries. I saw that they were highly rated. And wherever I saw it, I tend to trust that person. And it wasn't this series mentioned. It was just the name. So I went onto Audible, discovered that the Peter Shandy series by Charlotte McCloud is available with my Audible subscription. I can listen free. So I pulled out the first one, God Rest You Merry. Guys, this book was so funny. It was hilarious. It starts off with Peter Shandy is a professor. Okay. I gotta back up. This is back up. This series takes place in Balaclava County, Massachusetts, which I think is fictional. It is a Scandinavian county in Massachusetts, which is highly unlikely. You know, in a place where it's all very English, we have this Scandinavian thing. In this county, Balaclava County, that is named after Balaclava Buggins. But anyway, in this county, there is an agricultural college that is pretty well known and it's well respected. And it's run by a guy from Sweden, Thor Yeld or something or whatever. And Thori, I'm just going to call him Thor, he's kind of a caricature. His whole family is kind of a caricature. The author clearly decided to make these fun rather than realistic, and he's a hoot. He kind of grunts rather than talks. He just, I don't know. And he's got this wife. Her solution to life's problems is, well, I've got some herring. I've got 7 kinds of herring. We can do this. You know, and she's just, but even though it's a caricature, it is a beautiful picture of, you know, you've got this grumpy guy who just like grunts and, you know, whatever, but he is committed to this college and to his students and to doing the best thing. You've got to give him that. And then on top of it, his wife is like the most supportive wife. It was really a beautiful relationship in something that is so weird. Okay. I'm just saying. But then, so our Peter Shandy is a professor. He is a professor of some sort of biology, botany type thing, because he and his friend have created this extra big rutabaga turnipy thing, and I mean all kinds of stuff, right? Well, on this college, they have these winter days that all the houses just go all out, deck themselves out like nobody's business, and people come and they look at the lights and it's all so cool and everything. Well, Peter Shandy doesn't want anything to do with it. He is a single bachelor professor who just is not interested. Thank you very much. But they keep hounding him, they keep nagging him. So just before he leaves on his Christmas vacation, he calls in a crew to deck his house out like nobody's business. I mean, we are talking, he goes crazy all out, and then he leaves. He's got music blaring and you know, all these hours. He's got lights flashing like crazy. I mean, just everything while he's gone. And when he comes home, he finds a body in his house, and it goes from there. The story is a lot of fun. I absolutely had a blast with it. I didn't like the foul language that occasionally showed up. It was pretty rare, a lot less than, say, John Sebastian Farrell in the Halifax books. Maybe one of his scenes spread out across the whole book. So, you know, I mean, there's not a lot. There were a couple in the first one. There were a couple of inappropriate uses of God's name, which I didn't appreciate. But it wasn't, I don't know how to explain it. It was one of those things where it was just like, okay, whatever. Okay, so then in the second book in this series, Luck Runs Out. the luck runs out. By this point, Peter has met someone, he is married, life is grand. And I have to say, one of the things I really, really, really love about this book, it kind of backs up what James Scott Bell was saying in that book that I was talking about, where, you know, they wrote scenes without body parts. This author did a great job of showing this married couple flirting with each other, joking about their relationship, their intimate relationship, everything, without being crass, without making us feel like we're intruding on something private, because it's all stuff that could be said in front of anyone without making anyone feel uncomfortable. And yet it is very clearly they enjoy each other. And I loved that the author did that, and she did it really well, and I so appreciate that. And in this one, the mystery, someone is killed, the local farrier is killed and dumped in this one place. And then on top of that, a prize-winning pig is kidnapped. And so they're trying to figure out who did what and why and how, and everything that goes with it. It's a great mystery. Really enjoyed it. I don't recall there being a lot more language in that one. It was about the same. It's really hard to tell. But I do know that then I listened to the third book in the series, and that one is Rack and Ruin. And in Rack and Ruin, they find this old rune on this farm where people have, you know, they think they're going to lose their farm. Was there a dead person out there? No, the dead person wasn't out there. I don't remember why they went out there, but they went out there. This little old lady, oh my gravy, she's like almost 100, and the college president's uncle, who is about her age, is like chasing women. And again, it's crass if you really think about it, but the way it's presented isn't. And he is like, I'm like, seriously? You've got to be kidding me. And this professor's wife is like, we gotta get them married because this is inappropriate. It was so funny. But so the mystery was really clever. I really loved the mystery. But the college president, Thor, it was too much. I thought that the language was ramped up more in that one. And looking back, I could be wrong. I could be. It might be because of how the narrator uses the president's voice, and it sounds very gruff and that it might have sounded harsher when I heard it, so it felt like there was more of it. Okay, that's entirely possible, but because of what happens with the rest of the series, I don't think so. So that one, it could have been the last one I listened to. I really debated, and looking back, part of me wishes I had stopped there and just said, forget it. But there were a couple of really good ones after that I'm glad I didn't miss. But again, this is what happened. The next one, Something the Cat Dragged In. Okay, so then I listened to this one. This is book 4 in the series, Something the Cat Dragged In. There was less language. Definitely less language in there, which is good. I was happy. I was enjoying it. It was great. Life was grand. And so here I am just tootling along, just having the fun. In this one, a cat drags in a toupee, and the owner of the cat knows whose toupee this is. It's her boarder, and she's like, uh-oh. So they find out that this person is dead, and then they have to figure out why this person died and all the shenanigans, right? And it was really good. Really loved it. Great book. It was a lot of fun. They're very fun mysteries, and the cast of characters tends to stay the same. Even if the person who died is connected to someone else, we see someone else who comes in. A lot of fun. I'm just saying. Well, then, after Something the Cat Dragged In, there was The Curse of the Giant Hogweed. Shandy is in England. He is there for this hogweed symposium thing where they're trying to figure out how to solve the problem of hogweed because they've got these giant hogweeds and it's taking over everything. This is not good. He goes to a tavern. He falls asleep and he's like, it's like, I don't know, I got several chapters in and it felt like this whole book was going to take place in a dream state. And I DNF'd it. I was like, nope, I'm done. Done. And I haven't done all my reviews for all of these yet, but I will. I think I've only done reviews for the first two. I need to get these other 2, 3, 4, however many reviewed. But I DNF'd that one. I'm like, I'm just not even interested. I'm just not. And I don't remember there being, in the little bit I listened to, I don't remember there being much, if any, language. So it felt like things were coming down, right? Then I listened to The Corpse in Uzok's Pond. This one was brilliant. The actual mystery in this one was so brilliant. I was crazy impressed. It had lots of twists. It had, you can figure out, and it's really funny because there's a character who is definitely behind all this, and I kept feeling like something was wrong with that character, but I couldn't pin it. And then when I find out why, because I didn't figure that one out. And now I know why I didn't figure it out. I knew what was happening and why, but I didn't know who. And because of who and the twist, the other who's involved didn't work. It was just genius, and it was a total misdirection, and yet it was a Playfair mystery. You absolutely could figure it out if you paid attention and if you remembered all the things that you've been told, not just once, but multiple times. So it was all in there and I missed it. I had a lot of fun, but there was more language and I almost stopped. I almost said, okay, you know what? I'm done because it feels like it's ramping back up. And I've already been there, done that. And there was no reason, except that, now that I think about it, Thor was in it more again. Maybe there was a reason. I don't know. I felt at the time that there was no reason for there to be an obvious reason that it ramped up that way. But looking back, maybe it was him. Except, then I went on to Vane Pursuit, and it's V-A-N-E, as in a weather vane. And in this one, Peter's wife is writing about these weather vanes that this one guy made for all these places. And he made these really unique, characteristic weather vanes that fit the business on which they were mounted. So one was like timber. It was in some timberland in Maine. And so it was mounted up there, but it had like a logger with it was really cool. And there's one on this soap factory. Well, the soap factory burns, somebody dies, and somebody is badly injured. And Peter's supposed to find out what's going on there because they think it's one person and they don't want it to be that person. And they're pretty sure it's not, but something is off. And so while his wife is off, doing something connected to a weather vane at that soap factory. So I know that was going to come in somewhere. I know it was. I have a feeling I kind of know the mystery, even though I stopped at like chapter. I'm pretty sure I stopped before the halfway mark. I'm pretty sure. We got into somewhere around the halfway mark. Peter Shandy discovers this like arsenal of weapons and ammunition. And the guy that finds him, I was walking and I was about maybe a city block from my house. And the first F-bomb dropped. I was so mad. You have no idea. Because I'm walking. I need to keep moving. I live in a safe town. I walk at 2 a.m. I'm not concerned. But on the other hand, just standing around when you're out at that time of morning, it's bizarre how that doesn't feel safe, even though my brain knows it is. I don't like it. So I keep going, and I'm like, okay, I think this is my last book. I'm not going to take a chance on this happening again. When literally like 3-4 paragraphs later, another one drops. Same guy, not Shandy, but same guy. But see, Shandy has been using more slowly, right? He's one of the, and I think that's what has bothered me. It wasn't even that it was in the book, but that suddenly Shandy is the one. And I think that's kind of it. I'm pretty sure that was a publisher decision. I'm pretty sure the publisher wanted to make sure that these books were relevant to the people. So bad. But when the second one dropped, I stopped right there. I got rid of it. I went and looked to find out what the next Palliser book was. And I pulled up the Eustace Diamonds, and I was listening to that. So I'm done with the Peter Shandys. My friend has said that I should listen to the Boston ones. She doesn't think I'm going to have problems with those. So I'm going to try Charlotte McLeod, her Boston series, and see how that goes. So that was 6.5 books just in that series. Oh boy. Okay, and then the next one that remember how I said I thought there was Benedict Brown last month? Yeah, I did review it, so I'll go ahead and put it in here. It's A Novel Way to Kill by Benedict Brown. It was a novella, I think. And in this one, Christy and his grandpa and whoever else, I don't remember who all ended up going. I feel like the entourage wasn't there, but I think the chauffeur was. But anyway, they all go to this house where there are 3 sisters who are 3 different types of authors. But one is scholarly, one is more socially acceptable, and then one is, kind of pulp fiction. And so the sisters have kind of this problem among each other. He goes to visit the father who is killed. And then there's all the hoopla and the stuff that goes on with it. And it was just a great mystery. I loved it. I really, really think that Benedict Brown is an underrated author. It may just be that I connect with his characters so much that I think they're way better than they really are. That might be, but I don't care. I love reading them. I drum my fingers for the next one. And he's got a contemporary series that I haven't read yet. Because I like to listen to them. I like his narrator. I like everything that goes with it. But I'm about to, if that contemporary series doesn't end up on audio pretty soon, I'm just going to buy them and read them in paperback, and oh well. I could probably read them on Kindle Unlimited, but I'll probably buy them because I really can't imagine I'm not going to love them. I really love Benedict Brown's work. And I think it's just because he manages to write a clean book without, he doesn't pretend to make them Christian fiction. I don't even know if he is a Christian. It doesn't come into play. But he keeps them clean. I can't recall if there's ever been a word in there. If he has, it's not coming to mind right now, which means it didn't last in my head as this is a problem with him. Because if it was a problem, I would be like debating, do I keep going or not, like I did with Shandy, right? So Novel Way to Kill, great book, lots of fun. I really, because you get to see Chrissy, you get to see him grow and become a detective in his own right, slowly but surely, and see all the fumbles and the bumbles, but you can still see he's getting better and better all the time. I really think people ought to read him in order. That's just my not so humble opinion. Okay, so that was 7 books, really. Except it's more like 6.5 that I listened to. And then that other one was technically from July, but whatever. These are so good. All right, well, prior to series September, I finished another series. The Cape Cod Creamery is now done. And guys, I love this series so much. And I think what I love about it is that Suzanne Woods Fisher, it's women's fiction. It's romantic women's fiction, but it's women's fiction. And Suzanne Woods Fisher really has some crazy flawed characters in this series. And I love that about the series. I love that she shows it. She doesn't, it's like she doesn't apologize for it. She does let the characters grow, but there's not like this instant change or even a slow change in one book that stays throughout the next book. There's a wave, which is what we do. So in the first book in the series, you have a gal whose wedding is canceled by the groom. She and her mom go to Cape Cod. I can't remember, Chatham. She goes and is it Chatham? I think it is. And the mom impulsively buys a ice cream shop. And she's, the gal is freaking out. I'm going to forget all the names. I think in this one her name's Bryn. But the rest of them, I'm going to forget the names. But she freaks out. She's like, what are we going to do? We got to get you out of this contract and all the nine. You know, she's dealing with so much already that this is like one more thing. She can't handle it. But on the other hand, it's exactly what she needs. And I love that about it so much. I really, really, really love that about it, because what happens then is we have this character who is like pushed out of her comfort zone, which is what authors are supposed to do. But it keeps pushing, because then in the second book, I think it's her cousin, Callie. In the second book, her cousin Callie, I can't even remember her name, but her cousin Callie shows up after poisoning everyone at this major event because things went all wrong. And she's seriously depressed. She doesn't know what she's doing. And they have to work to help her. And it kind of repairs the relationship between the gal from the first book and this last, I can't even remember her name. It would really help if I knew all the names. So I'm going to see if I can find it. It's kind of interesting. So Dawn is the primary gal in the first book. That's D. The second gal is Callie. Callie in the second book, right? So DC. And then in the third book, we have Bryn. So it's kind of weird. I wonder if she knew she did that. These things sometimes happen accidentally. Sometimes they're on purpose. I don't know. But so with Callie, she's really having to work through all those problems. And she has to work through her relationship with Dawn, because Dawn has problems with Callie. And Dawn has problems with everybody. Dawn, it's really funny. I shouldn't like her. She's technically not likable. But I do, because I see myself in all of these characters, and then I don't see myself at all in any of them at the same time. It's really, really cool. In this one, Bryn goes to Vegas for this conference, wakes up the next morning after one day, after like 2 or 3 days there. She wakes up in the morning, sneaks out of her hotel room with the husband she just met and married, and flies to Cape Cod to hide out while she figures out what she's going to do, because she didn't do anything that isn't highly planned. And this is like really out of the world. And Dawn is like, I will fix this. We will get this annulled. I mean, Dawn is like on it. But Marnie, Dawn's mom, is like, wait a minute. Is that what you want? You don't do this kind of thing. And she's like, I know, I'm freaking out. And she's like, yeah, but if this isn't who you are and yet you did it, is there some reason that you did it? Now, I will admit, if there weren't a lot of other things in here to balance it, I would have had serious problems with some of the advice in this book. Because there's a lot, but it's her personality, and that's why it works. Marnie is really kind of pushing the follow your heart thing. And I have a hard time with this follow your heart business, because the heart is deceitful and it lies, and it's But I get what Marnie is really saying. She's really saying, look at what you really want, not what you think you should do. And then compare it, In this one, at the beginning, Bryn isn't a Christian. And then by the end, she is looking at faith and trying to figure out what is going on in her life. It is a beautiful, beautiful story. And I think most people would relate to it really well. Yeah, the romantic women's fiction, there's a thread of romance in all of them. There's multiple threads, really. But like in this one, Dawn's control tendencies is ready to damage relationships big time. And I love the fact that Suzanne Woods Fisher didn't pull punches at all. Not at all. It really was. It was so good. There was just a lot that I will read this series again. I'm keeping this series. I will read it again because there was a lot to learn from. And this is what I love about Christian fiction. Even though I'm bothered by the follow your heartness, I know what's behind it, and I know where Suzanne is really pushing readers. She's pushing them. Take this stuff to the Lord. Take it to the Word. Find out what He wants for your life. Don't make assumptions that you know best about you, or don't assume that so-and-so who thinks they know best about you is right. Look at everything through more than one lens to make sure that you're getting the truth. And that's the point of it. And so, yeah, it was really good. 5 stars all the way. Loved it. I just love that series. But it's mostly, and don't get me wrong, I love the characters. I love the setting. I love all the stuffness. I love the stories. But what I love the most is how much it made me really look at myself, look at my heart. Am I yielded to Christ where I need to be? When a book makes me look at that, that's what I go for. So I was like, score. Oh, boy. All right, Palliser novels. Second one. First one was Can You Forgive Her? It was a really great story. Didn't have the spiritual depth that the Barsetshire books has, but since they're not supposed to, that's not the point of the series, is to give you a spiritual depth, even in that other one. It's just that one was about church, ecclesiastical politics and everything, and I have learned something about this series. In this one, and even in the other one. I think Trollope is writing, and probably in all of his books, I really think the point of all of the books is politics, whether it's church politics, actual legislative, civic politics, or societal politics. That's what he's writing about. Totally. And now I understand some of what was in the Barsetshire books that when you're going on and on about the elections, I'm like, I don't really care. This one is another Phineas Finn. It's another hugely political book. I was so bored through a lot of it. But it was also really instructional. So in this one, Phineas Finn is from Ireland. He ends up in Parliament. He's a barrister. He ends up in Parliament, and his mentor in the law office doesn't think he should be. He thinks this is a bad choice for Phineas. He needs to, make decisions. And in here we have another time where someone signs for a friend, and that friend just lets him down. It's Mark, what's his name? Roberts, all over again from the Barsetshire books. And yet not nearly as bad. This guy, it doesn't keep coming back for more and more and more. And it's not Phineas's ruination or anything, although you do wonder. But in this one, you do kind of see how easy it is for these guys to get set up in this. They are not trained in how to make these decisions. It's really strange, and I don't understand a lot of it. I think the people at the time that this was written for probably had a better grasp of what was going on. But I'm looking at it, 150 years later or more, and I'm going, I don't understand how this happened. because, you know, there's just so much. So he wants to be in politics. He puts a lot, like in that first book in this series, Can You Forgive Her? Mary, like, pours her fortune into a cousin's political career, and it's gone. They spent so much of their own personal money campaigning to get into Parliament, and it's not a paying job. So Phineas is a very affable, a very nice guy. Back home, he has a girl who is definitely in love with him, who he has flirted with, and all is well. Then he's in London. There is a woman there that he thinks he's in love with, and he is determined to marry her. And then he finds out she's engaged. You know, she gets engaged in the process of him figuring all this out and deciding to offer for her. And then after his hopes are dashed there, he falls for another woman. This woman actually has quite a bit of money, but the woman he was in love with, yeah, you know, and his in love changes fast. I'll just say he's constantly falling for and getting over women. But that woman wants her brother to marry the second woman he wants to marry, and so there's a big hullabaloo with that. And then at the end, knowing what kind of a guy Phineas is, a very good woman, a very just wonderful woman, marries him. Why? Don't get me wrong. I think I would really, really, really enjoy having a conversation with him. I'd love having him over for a game night. Phineas Finn was a nice guy. He really was. But he was a little bit like John, can't remember his last name, from, was it the last Barsetshire or I think it was the one before the last Barsetshire book. Whatever that was. Phineas Cottage. Maybe it was that one. I think maybe it was that one. But it's the same kind of thing. Just being loose with women's affections, very flirty, very fickle. And I mean, again, he's a fun character. I think I would like him. But I would not want my daughter interested in this man. I wouldn't trust him. And I know there are some people that would say, well, you know, man like that, you know, they just need the love of a good woman and they'll stay firm. No, you show me that you are a worthy man, and then I'll decide if I am willing to trust my heart to you. I don't just give it over and then hope that you're going to be faithful. And so I really had trouble in here. So then in here we have what really ticked me off. Okay, I'm just going to set the book down for a minute. Look, guys, the woman that he was in love with that then got engaged, she marries a man. Trollope wants me to think of this man as a very controlling, narrow-minded, domineering, immovable, just heartless man. And I know that because of the lenses that he tries to put all these scenarios through. And this woman, Lady Laura, feels like oppressed by him because he has expectations of her. Basically, he expects her to be his wife. Imagine that. I can't imagine. It's so infuriating because he is portrayed as this guy who is just horrible because he wants her to go to church with him and not have frivolous entertainments on Sunday. How dare he? What kind of brute would want this of his wife? I'm not kidding. The argument she had about feeling oppressed and repressed by this man and that way that she kept going on about it, I'm like, seriously, are we talking about the same man? Because the guy that Trollope is showing us is not the guy that we see through her eyeballs. And really, frankly, she's terrible. I'm sorry. In this thing, you have this woman. She ends up leaving her husband. And I don't think this is a spoiler. And if it is, I'm sorry. But she ends up leaving her husband and going home to daddy. And her husband has to sue to get his wife back. Now, I didn't know that this was a thing. I knew that there was like breach of promise suits. And I knew that if a woman was found to be unfaithful and there was a divorce, he could keep the children. And I knew all these kinds of things. I did not realize that he could sue to force his wife to come back home. I have a whole book planned because, guys, I am writing this the way I see it, but with different characters, obviously. I'm not going to do a rewrite, but I'm going to write this the way I see it and how I think it could have come out if she had been willing to be yielded to God in this situation. Because I'm like ticked. I read this book. I wanted to throw it. I was so mad at her. And as much as I did not like all the politics, I really tried to understand them, and I really struggled. I figure by the time I get done with the series, maybe I'll understand some of the old British politics, but it's the old stuff. It's not even the new stuff, so I don't know. But yeah, so this one was my trollop for the month. It's a very long book, and it's not my favorite of the series, but there were some really good lessons in it, even if I disagreed with the conclusions that Trollope was trying to make, based upon what I think, he said. Then I finished No Space Like Home by Del Tunnicliffe. This was for Buzzword Reading Challenge, like in the title. And yeah, it was so much fun. It was more fun this time even than last time. And I think I figured out why. The last time I was reading it, I was reading to, know the story, yes, but also to help try to find any little errors. And I missed some. I know I missed quite a few, actually. There's like a couple of spots where the formatting is off. There's a couple of spots where there's an end quote where there shouldn't be one. And there was a couple of spots where captain was spelled with a V. And at first I thought it was something that she had done deliberately, but I don't think so because it's inconsistent. So there were a few little typos that we missed. I'm really sad that we're not going to get more because I want more. But yeah, it said, I didn't remember until I got to the end of it, but in the acknowledgments or in the author's note or whatever it is at the end, let me see. The book 2 in the Stars Hareth series expected to publish sometime in 2020, and that was the year that Del died. So yeah, I think it was the year that Del died. Maybe one of the girls will do it. That would be awesome if they did, but if not, I get it. Okay, next up, Newton and Polly by Jody Headland. This was my Chantal Reads All Day. It had water on the cover. This one is about John Newton and his cousin Polly, and how they, basically it's not just their love story, but it's also how they both came to a true saving faith in Christ. And that is really important. But I'm not kidding you, about this much of the book is before either of them have any true anything. So basically, John Newton was a spoiled little brat who really thought that rules didn't apply to him. I really did not like John Newton at all. He was an awful guy. I don't know what Polly saw in him. It's obvious that she met him when she was really young. I think she was 15, 16, somewhere in there. She had to have been that young to find him dashing, because he was awful. And it just goes to show what God can do with a person, right? Over and over and over in here, his father comes up with an opportunity for him, and it's inconvenient for him, or he feels like daddy's too controlling, or why can't dad do what I want for once constantly? And so, he's supposed to be on a ship on, June 1st, and it's June 8th, and he's still over at Polly's house staying with the family for a while because he didn't feel like doing what he's supposed to be doing. It was constant. He was a charmer. He reminded me a lot of Phineas Finn in how he's just really, 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 really charming. Well, then it gets, and Polly's father is really deeply deeply devoted to God. Her mother is too, but you really see it in the father. And at one point, though, the mother finally gets through to Polly that all this striving that she's doing to try to earn God's favor isn't the point. The point is just yielding to God and accepting his love for her. And it's about God and not about her. And when that finally gets through to her, we do see a change in her and we see some real growth. But that's really late in the book. I mean, there's just a whole lot of foreground of seeing just how messed up they are. And I do feel like quite a bit of the book could have been cut, frankly. But it was a great story because of what God does in their lives near the end. Now, John Newton goes from being kind of a flirtatious rake, if you will, to a vile, horrible person. He ends up he's not just a slave trader on a ship per se. That's what I've always been told, but from what I read in here, and I'll get to it in a minute, but I believe it's accurate. He ended up in Africa, he and a friend, and they were brokering the deals. They weren't taking ships back and forth like I always imagined him doing. They were brokering the deals between the chief of tribes and, the people that the African tribes. They would capture people and sell them to the traders. And these guys were that middleman. And then they would have the slaves all waiting for when a ship would come by and they would sell them off. So they were on land, and he lived a debauched, awful life. Horrible. Then he ends up half shanghaied, not quite, but half shanghaied on the way home. So that scene that we all have heard about with the ship is going down and he cries out to the Lord and everything, and that, whatever. That scene is that final trek home where he's expecting one thing and he has no idea what's going to happen. They shouldn't be alive when they finally reach land. They shouldn't. It was obviously it was God's divine intervention. And at that point, he has so thoroughly changed and converted and committed himself to the Lord that he gives up Polly. Thank you. Because at that point, I finally believe you. But, and then everything works out because it's a romance and it's their story and, whatever. I didn't know how accurate this was until I got to the end of the book. I think Anne from In Search of Wonder had said that it was very accurate, but I didn't understand why she said that. At the end of the book, Jody Headland tells us that she's taking all of her information straight from him. And almost all the characters in here are actual people. The one character I despise the most wasn't real. So that was kind of cool. But yeah. It was really, really good. I love this way better than Kitty and Luther. So for whatever it's worth. Yeah, I believe I gave that 5 stars. If I didn't, I'm a fool. Next up, I did my books I've been avoiding. What kind of idiot am I? This book, it's epistolary. It's about a dead letter office. And it's amazing. No, I really liked it. This one, she works in the dead letter office. She runs across a letter that he has sent to someone. And it's this woman, Clara, that he loves and he is just grieving over. And she's determined to find this woman. She finds the woman. She finds out that there's a secret. And so she goes when her life implodes and she is going to be expected to move with her uncle and become a society woman again, and she doesn't want to. She actually goes to where this man is, Azure Springs, which is why I took so long to read this book, right? Because I was going to read that one first. But she goes to Azure Springs and she loves it there. And the people in that town are the neatest characters. I loved the characters. I loved the situations. And I loved that the antagonist / villain in here, I can't say what it is, but I loved something about it. Very well done and very reasonable. you could see why everything happened the way it did and why the conclusion worked out the way it did. It was really, really cool. The characters are just so good. But being epistolary, what was really good, not all epistolary novels do this, and I understand why. It's not necessarily an easy thing, but in this one, the letters, they don't just kind of explain the story. They actually push the story forward. You could not have this story without the letters. You need them or the story would fall flat, which is really, really, really cool. And the letters kind of have I think the spiritual lessons would have fallen flatter without the letters and the changes in them. And it's just, I don't know. I thought it was a beautiful story. And yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. And finally, the last book that I read was Vittoria Cottage by D.E. Stevenson. It's the first in the Deering series. And in this one, Caroline, is her name Caroline? I think her name's Caroline. I've got some tabs. I'm going to look at them. But Caroline is a widow. Yes. So Caroline was married off very young to a much older man who was, he's one of those people that enjoys being put upon. He likes to feel like he's being abused and misunderstood and everything is out to get him. He's just a very terrible person. And he uses his natural tendency toward melancholy to control as opposed to it controlling him. And I think that's what I had the biggest problem with her. We don't really see him in here. She's a widow. She lives in Vittoria Cottage with her, is it 2 daughters that are there? I think it's 2 daughters with her, and then her son is off in Malaysia, I'm assuming, after some war, I'm assuming World War II. Her daughter gets engaged to the squire's son. The squire isn't happy. She's not happy. And yet those kids are really wanting to be married yesterday. Unfortunately, they do everything they can to postpone that. You got to finish your schooling, buddy. You got to be able to support a wife, minor little things like that. And so, at least it slows down things. But the daughter is very much like her father. And Caroline is such a wise woman. This is another cozy family story. We get to see into the lives and the thoughts and everything of the family. We get to see Caroline. Is it her cousin that comes, who's an actress? I think it's her cousin. She comes to stay for a while. Then we got the daughters. The son comes home. And the son has his own thing. And there's going to be another book, Music in the Hills. I got a copy of it on my stack here. So, lots going on, but it was just a beautiful, beautiful story. And D.E. Stevenson's idea of romance is totally mine because it's always kind of a little bit of an afterthought to the main story. And we know where it's going, but we don't get dragged there through it all. We have that satisfaction that, yes, someone's going to have a happily ever after without us having to walk through the sticky ooey gooeys, which is really nice. Let me see what some of these quotes were. Okay, so she's ironing and talking to this friend, Mr. Shepperton. And she says, I've thought a lot about happiness, perhaps because I saw what unhappiness did to Arnold, her husband. I've sometimes thought, supposing every single person, decided to do their level best to make one small corner of the world happier, would that help? She spread out a wrinkled pillow slip as she spoke and smoothed it skillfully. Like that, he said. She smiled. You mean ironing out the wrinkles? That's easy, if you know how. I know how to iron out wrinkles, she admitted, folding linen carefully. If everyone did what they could, made a little happiness here and there, just to start with, and then the circles would spread out until they touched and merged. everything ironed out. It isn't impossible. Not if we started to go about it the right way. We're going about it the wrong way. Passing laws and trying to make people happy and good, there's only one way in which it can be done, and that's from the inside outwards, starting with the individual and spreading outwards to others. Gee, sounds biblical, doesn't it? So I loved that. That was so good. And then perhaps it is better to give than to receive. But it is best to do both and to do it graciously in the Christmas spirit. And it's kind of interesting because at first I kind of recoil a little bit because I'm like, it's better to give than to receive. That's biblical. But then I started thinking about it and I'm like, we're supposed to bear each other's burdens. And then I realized that's like the other side of the same coin. Yes, it's better to give than to receive. But no one can enjoy that moment of giving something if someone doesn't also receive. You know, the joy in giving is that someone receiving. But if that someone doesn't receive, then the joy in giving is gone. You know, I give you a gift and you shove it aside. Well, it's gone. And so I was like, yeah, it takes both. And I was like, okay. And then my brain went on and it did what it does. I've got a crazy brain that thinks of all the weird stuff. Harriet is the aunt. It says, it isn't what happens to you that matters. It's how you take it. And I was like, ooh, yes. So this was so good. Awesome. Can't wait to read the next one, which, where is it? Okay, this will bring me to my next question. Guys, I have another stack of new books. Do I seriously do another book haul, or do I just start sharing them on Instagram so that I don't clutter this up with one book haul after another? What do you think? I don't know. But this is the one that came in. Since it's a series, I will probably read it for series September. But yeah, isn't that a beautiful copy? It's almost perfect. There's this tiny little tear here, a little bit of wear on that, but it's almost perfect. And it's in there. Isn't that beautiful? It's so bright and shiny. It looks like a British phone box. It's that exact color. I had no idea until I went to England that British phone box blue is such a hugely popular color, period, in England. I can't tell you how many houses had doors that color. I just had no idea. I was like, whoa, that's surprising. So anyway, that was what I read in the second half of August, and yeah, it was a good reading month. I am really sad about the Peter Shandy mysteries because I was really enjoying them, but once it started going there, if I forgot two in the first half of a book, it's too bad. But I'm going to read the others and we're going to see. So I get to put some books away. That's going to be cool. And I put it's in the shorts. I'll put a link. Put my books. I decided to do all of my books. They're pretty much 50% off. And on each shelf, I've put a free sticky note in one of them that says free. So if someone orders that one and I pull it off the shelf and it has it in there, they don't even have to pay for it. But I'll put a link to the books that are available. First come, first serve, so they could be gone by the time someone sees this. But and that will probably end basically it's going to end before I leave on my trip. I think on the 19th, or is it the 17th? One of the two. I'm not gonna keep it going while I'm gone because nobody can mail books. So we got that going, and right now 12 Dates of Christmas is free on Kindle. So I'll put that link in there too, because why not? Why not? Meanwhile, I'm going to eat this and then go make some more, I think. I gotta walk first. I'll walk and then I'll eat some more.